In 2026, privacy is no longer a policy problem, it's a production problem. Leaders are discovering the brutal truth. You can complain on paper and still fail on scale in a daily operations, where con- consent clicks, spreadsheets travel, vendors process, and incidents unfold at 2 a.m. Across industries, there is tension on the same. Digital team ships faster than governance can verify. Controls exist, but evidence is missing. Tools are deployed but underused. People know the rule, but workflows push them to bypass it. When problems the audience is facing today, how do you become a DPDP proof when reality is messy? Multiple systems, multiple teams, multiple vendors, and consent change. Why leaders are struggling with it? Because DPDP is not a one time project, it's a system, and all systems fail at the last mile. Consent captured, purpose mapped, retention enforced, breach response, and vendor execution. Why this matters now? Under the India's new DPDP regime, data fiduciaries may be able to prove notice and consent, not just claim it. The proof breaks when daily operations run into exceptions, exports, and uncontrolled handoffs. What changes the listeners after this episode? You leave with a practical and executable ready playbook to shift policy compliance to operational proof with controls plus evidence plus automation plus governance that survives real workflows. Our guest of authority today we want to introduce is Mr. Shivakant, who has spent 20 years in building security and GRC programs inside regulated environments where real game is not having controls but proving controls under pressure, especially during audits, incidents, and vendor escalations. Let's welcome Shivkant to the podcast event and dive in. Hi, Shivkant. Welcome to our podcast. How are you today?
Hi, Prem. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening, all to the viewers. And thank you for having me here, Prem. Uh, and it's wonderful to come back on this podcast. We have done in past couple
Yeah.
and hope they were informative and useful content we discussed and topics were also relevant. And even today's topic is uh, widely spoken and have a great traction in terms of the government from the regulation point of view, as well as various GCCs and many, right? So I think I'm looking forward to have a great conversation with you, Prem.
Thank you, Shiva. Shiva, let's start with one pointer that what does DPDP proof actually mean in the organizations, Shiva?
Sure, Prem. So before we get into that proof, I just want to share a small analogy to demystify what is a DPDP, why we talk about so much on the DPDP importance now, right? So you take any common uh, day of life in these days, right? It's not about an cyber incident or a security breach. As a normal life, how we deal in day to day. For example, you go to a mall and you bought a shirt, something like that, and the moment you arrive to billing desk, the first thing they'll ask, what is your phone number? Not about the what you purchased and what the cost element, right? And you go to a saloon, they ask the phone number. You go to grocery shop, they're asking phone number, right? You subscribe to gym, phone number. You buy a movie ticket, they're asking phone number. And one step ahead, you go to buying any little valuable stuff like gold and some of the premium valuable items along with phone number. Now they're asking even ID proof, like that's the detailing they are looking at, right? So the question is, we are happy to give it. We know we never ask why they need our phone number or identity proof, right? and why they need our identity proof and phone number first place, and what they're going to use it further, and how long it is keeping it. Is it safe to leave with them? And there are such kind of questions we never realize it, because we are get used to it, and we are very what do you say, we let go certain things for the convenient purpose basically than questioning most of the time. That's the olden era, I would say. One could be awareness is not enough in terms of the people, or fundamentally they are get used to it. Nobody is asking, nobody is questioning, so everybody gives, so I am also giving. This is the behavioral aspect, right? So I think the DPDP is fundamentally shifting that gear and bringing that importance. And now let me flip the prospect of the other side of it. So all these while where you're sharing data as a customer, right? Assume now you're the business owner, the data fiduciary now, because you're the one collecting that phone number, you're the one storing that identity proof, and some of these information you might be putting in spreadsheet or Excel. You're storing it that information somewhere in cloud or something like that, right? But what is the usage of this and in a secure way of keeping that record, right? Now it could be small petty shop to a enterprise. Now the question is, it's from even issuing a small bill itself, if they're collecting a personal information, if it is not limiting to the purpose what they're intended, then they are answerable as part of DPDP Protection Act. So it's no mere technology law, it is a daily life of law, I would say, right? So that's the context I would like to set, and I hope people could realize and start asking from now on, people who are viewing our podcast at least, because one of the key pillar under DPDP is what? Awareness, bringing awareness, right? And cultural shift. I think your podcast and the various programs what we do through various community outreach and all, our motto is to spread this awareness, sharing our learnings, and sharing our knowledge, right? So with that, let me come back to your question. I think proof is what you're
Yeah,
emphasizing, right?
right.
Right. So if you look at many organizations, in paper they look like DPDP compliant, meaning they might have security tools, they might be using vendor agreements, and audits are passed, and consents are taken. But from the DPDP standpoint of view, um, how often you have reviewed this agreements, right? Second, the purpose what you collected are you using for the same purpose, or how long you have been retaining this information? Is the deletion is frequently happening, or it is just clearing the audit, right? So these are the reality check and the compliance check. So people can have the compliance check as a proof uh, checkbox, but in reality some of the things are not meeting the compliance. So in paper they might look compliance, but on the daily readiness of operations are failing, that leading to incidents and failing at DPDP compliance at large. So you may ask, so what could be the no uh, next, how do we address this? um, I think they have uh, go through the what DPDP recommendations, and have a proper consent in place, and limit the collection of data. That's the I would say mantra. Don't excessively keep the collect the information, and storing also would be a major challenge these days. Don't over store information. Uh, have the retention period defined, and securely you clear the data when is not required, so that you will minimize the risk of keeping uh, information. Yeah, over to Prem.
Got it, Shiva. So, what is the difference we are having when DP controls and being able to prove with them with any evidence at the moment across apps, teams, and vendors, Shiva?
um, can you repeat?
Yeah. So, what is the difference between having DPDP controls and being able to prove them with evidence at the moment across apps, teams, and vendors?
So uh, so these proofs are not, as I said in previous point, proofs is not just limiting to checkbox, right?
Hmm.
So many applications when we develop, it's mostly not limiting to in-house. There will be a collaboration between external third parties, and so on and so forth, right? So when you give it to third party, and third party further it may give it to the some of their supporting uh, teams. Basically we will not have a uh, larger visibility in terms of the third parties and further what they are outsourcing. So that's where but the responsibility as a data fiduciary, it remains with us. So you need to know the complete workflow of how they are processing this information, and have checks and balances, and keep this continuous of monitoring how they are processing, is it meeting as per the consent and the deletion criteria. So I think that's the important aspects they need to look at when they are dealing with vendors. And at the same time, it's not like one time, but normally people do as per audit once in a quarter or once in an annual, right? It's not that just like a check. It is a continuous awareness and validation is required in terms of meeting the DPDPA.
No, I think what you are saying is DPDP proof is a continuous defensibility and clear notices, valid consent, purpose
Correct.
limitation. This is what we are looking at. Retention discipline is what you said when we spoke about, and data principles, right? Like handling, breaching, readiness, and all is
Correct.
backed up with time stamped evidence is what you're talking about. And I think consent is the highly most important where. You cannot have ambiguous and withdrawals that should be easy given as a consent. So that's what I think what you are saying, right? And what we see is compliance isn't a document. DPDP proof is an evidence you can produce under pressure is what we are saying, right? So coming to the next point, if if companies are compliant on paper, why does it still break on daily operations?
So so they're showing as a complaint on paper, meaning it's a reputation game, right? So every
Hmm.
organization, they want to say that I'm compliant in DPDPA, but things is not happening because when the consent is not dealt with no right way, and the checks are not balanced, and some of these data, they are not limiting to use what the purpose intent. Many times they have this some of the targets, marketing strategies comes up, and some pressure situations, speed of doing business, they intend to leverage the existing data itself. And that's where the fundamental aspect of DPDP principle itself, they are failing. So but from the consent point of view, I have collected data for the assume that payroll uh, assessment, right? But when some new employment engagement tool, something company is rolling out, they need some uh, employee information to see the effectiveness of the tool from XYZ parameters. So instead of they are re-asking the consent and using the existing database and deploying on the tool and see the effectiveness. So in that process, there could be chances of leakage of that data,
Hmm.
or if it is left out at a POC state and not, roles defined, responsibilities are not given, ownership is not defined, and these databases or something, it is inappropriately left, it not cleaned up after that. So all these gaps eventually is, leading to data leakage. And we all know that human is the weakest link any of these things, right? So the baseline, if you look at the DPDP, it is all about protecting your data. So, and why they are asking limiting to the purpose, so that you don't repeatedly use the information which is available with us. So you will limit the scope of exposing our personal information for various other aspects. So, but in reality, it's not happening that way. That's where some of these uh, issues are cropping up. I think you're on mute, Prem. I can't hear
Now,
you.
where does the last mile fail most often? Onboarding, marketing, ops, customer support, analytics, HR, or vendor hands off? Where do you feel the last mile failing, Shiva?
Last mailing, I would say, in my view, vendors, I believe, because vendors, we don't have complete control. Even though you do an assessment of the vendor, a third party assessment, normal every organization does. But what is invisible for us is vendor himself is uh, further, he's basically outsourcing some of the modules or some of the processes, is to uh, further third parties basically, right? So that is something, it is not fully owned by nor vendor, not the data fiduciary, but the as per the DPDP principle, it is the ownership still lies with the data
Data.
fiduciary, that is the business owner. That means if I'm the organization, I'm outsourcing some XYZ module to third party, and the third party, for me, they are not accountable if some breach occurs. Still, as a business owner, I am accountable and I need to report to the concerned team. So I see last mile third party vendors, I see more risky. um, the uh, the mechanism to prevent is have the continuous uh, I mean, have the proper agreements and SLAs in terms of the nitty-gritties of any breach or occurs. That will some extent you can still have the protection parameter in terms of something goes bad, and have the workflows are clearly defined. If something they further uh, delegating the processes, and ask them your third party to call out to whom they are giving sharing that loads, and include them, basically inclusive of all the external parties involved when you are outsourcing your data processing unit.
Think what you are saying is we should be very particular in what is the data that we are giving and what is the data we are collecting when we include the vendor systems into our environment is what we are doing. What is the most common silent DPDP failure happening today that boards don't see? Any pointers there, Shiva?
Silent failures,
Yeah.
I would say, think awareness is one thing, uh, because when organizations uh, um, not bringing this uh, it could be penalties, it could be the way how they are leveraging this personal data, the way they are handling the information, and the consent management system, and the data life cycle. We say that record of processing ability ROPA is clearly defined, like how you're collecting, how long you're storing, where you are keeping information, do you have a secure disposal of this information. If this ecosystem is is not there in organization, and sometimes people has a myth of I am a small business, it may not applicable for me. So it's not about the small, medium, or enterprise. Whoever is handling personal data, they are they must uh, entitled to fulfill this DPDPA law. And and you, as a security professional, you should educate your board what is the nitty-gritties of penalties it enforce, and eventually the trust factor you may erode, right? So ultimately building trust is gains customer confidence, and in the long term you are into business, and some of these breaches can lose that trust. And earlier we used to say data is the currency. Now that is one step ahead. Now trust become a currency, everyone saying. And if you lose the trust, then repatching is very difficult. That eventually have the business impact as well.
No, what we are saying is the documents that we are leaving off on the table, which can be or in the systems that are open like CVV exports, and some of the shared files that we are doing on some of the Telegram or WhatsApp channels, which are
Correct.
kind
Those
of
are
child.
convenient basis people are using
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
So some of
Yeah.
these escalation times and all, people, even though they have official apps like Teams or things like that, corporate apps are much more secure. But
Yeah.
pe- convenience, they'll be sharing certain documents, as you rightly mentioned, Telegrams or WhatsApp, that is leading to these data leakages. Also we'll be using SaaS based tools, cloud providers. We
Hmm.
don't know where the data is residing, right, unless you have the complete control. Because if you talk about cloud, how the data replication is happening, where it is getting stored, and many unknown aspects are coming into the picture, that I think those things need to be accounted well, and have that proper data mapping. Basically the data life cycle mapping, you should be aware of it. It could be tools, it could be people, or process, we say, right? Everything you need to map in such a way that data is secured, basically.
What you are saying is DPDP doesn't break in policies; it breaks in the handoffs that we are giving. So that's the pointer that you are saying, and that is very important for us to look at. Now, is there a real issue in technology gaps or human behaviors, Shiva?
uh, I mean, it could be a mix of both,
Hmm.
but ultimately, humans are the culprits, right? So, any exception when happens, when some senior person asks something, an admin is can't over dominant him and something like that. Most of the exceptions will lead to no gaps, I would say. uh, but if it is not uh, handled by human, then system can't know that emotion, right? So basically that's where non-emotional aspects can be handled through automating resources mostly. And one best example I would recall is zero trust. Now, yeah, we have like encryption in place, IAM, and various other security tools are in place, but still firewalls exist, your network policies, ACLs, everything is there into the system. But what happens many times, this convenience over dominant, or superior authority can over dominant at times. And people don't have that patience, like they want to do things faster. For that, There might be exceptions, there might be temporary accesses are opened up, but that temporary access become permanent after some time, because you never go back and look at what you have opened, that firewall port or some that access list edited or something like that. The temporary experimenting or allowing that for urgency purpose to enable the business, people overlook sometimes, that will eventually leave the gap. So it's a combination of tech is there to protect it, but you're altering that protection. So tech also is a here playing, not giving complete protection, but human is the intervention, is bringing more, and the tweaks of human is actually uh, releasing the gap, and eventually the combination of these two is not meeting the security enough. So the prevention, I would say, zero trust principle, you go with zero trust. It is much better, and at least they don't give you access. Least privileges are enforced, and every time you need to prove your authorization and identity, and only when it is trust is established, then only the access is given.
Got it, Shiva. So what we are saying is sometimes the challenge is that unknown access is given which are not revoked can be change challenges that we are seeing. And in regulated environments, what is the more dangerous risk? Weak tools, misaligned incentives, or speed targets and SLA? How do you look at that, Shiva?
Um, See, now, see, for me, as always, see as a balanced approach. You ask me anything, I say both. There is no a single element which could say that this will only hamper the system or something like that. So tools is, as I mentioned in the previous example question also, tools are there for a protection, but again, tools are managed by people, right? So eventually people are the one handle the tools, and what how you uh, I mean, the tools output only you um, document as an evidence for the audit, and that will I know you show it as a regulatory compliance or audit proof, right? So it's not just a checkbox to hit, like uh, we have like incident response team, the events are uh, the incident is well managed, and these are the findings, we have protected systems, all these things you can convey in terms of to show the evidence to the regulatory standpoint of view. But the gaps which human creating is what. So we always say in DPDP, behavior, right? Behavior aspects will outbreak the systems. Uh, so compliance is the documented proof, but operations is behavior. So it's not just uh, meeting the audit criteria alone. You also sustain the behavior aspects. That means um, this. Uh, n- can you hear me, Prem?
Yes.
I'm losing the. I mean, am I breaking in between?
No, we are good, Shiva. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was summarizing is, yes, tools are there. You're passing the audits in terms of to meet the regulation, but your behavior patterns. That means having this consent and keeping the data intact, and keep the limitation for the intended purpose, and act when something goes wrong, take own the responsibility, then be transparent and inform the required parties when something is unusual. So that's the more important when it comes to DPDPA law.
What you are saying is tools are kind of an enablement that we are having, right? And people under that do under pressure, so there could be a change that could be done where you need to finish some work, or there's a priority that is given to that work, and so that's where tools don't break DPDP. People under the pressure do, is what we want to say. And now coming to the next point, how does this consent break in real life operations, Shiva?
Again, the urgency of the business, right?
Mm, mm,
um, so now, I think some of the example which I spoke about, that payroll example. So you have the data, and some X purpose you have collected. That's where the consent, right? So I am taking frame details for XYZ purpose. So I ask, are you fine with this, right? And that's where I collected in your information. But uh, I have leveraged and used it. That purpose is completed. But there is something else coming up, and I don't have so much of time to wait and re-ask your consent. That is one aspect. Second, uh, the shorter timelines to meet the business uh, needs, meet these this revenue market, hitting the market, time to market it basically. Then anyway, convenience, basically I have data, why should I go back and ask? Any of these people are taking it sometimes granted, right? All are my employees only. Why should I again go back and ask? I can save some time, speed, right? People are looking at speed, but they're not looking at the repercussions of what it is going to come. And because all these while this is not a law or
law,
enforcement,
yeah.
right? So people, that cultural shift or behavioral, that's what I'm saying, that the cultural behavioral shift has to come to the system with this act. This law. Otherwise, we are used to it for very long years. And in India context, we never take data. Personal data is so much serious, like like
Series.
Western countries, right? This
Mm,
also could be one game changer, I would see, from the people start respecting how we deal the information. Earlier we are see most from the Western point of view, businessing to European Union or in something like that. I think similar uh, way people start looking Indian handling of data also much higher in terms of the establishing the trust. So coming back to your consent is breaking because of the speed and taking it granted of information what they have, and they're not limiting the what purpose they have collected in the consent, and data is over consuming or keeping it for multiple purposes than intent.
no, no, no.
That's where it
What
is
you're
failing.
saying, what you're saying is data must be clearly explained for the purpose that is being collected. Consent must be tied to a specific purpose, and data fiduciary may need to prove notice or consent when questioned. Right. So that's the
Correct.
point that you are trying to say. Like marketing may use the data beyond the original purpose, maybe analytics and retagging, support recording. So these are the pointers that there. But when you tie that consent, what you are saying is you should look at getting that consent revalidated before you reuse. That what
Correct.
you're saying, right? So
Yes.
got your point. Consent does not fail at the click level; it fails at the downstream reuse. Is what the pointer that we are trying to say. Now, why this point we've been asking in most of the pointers is because the data that we are collecting is mostly on Excel. So if you really look at, we have all the data in Excel, and Excel is a big threat now. Why
Correct.
is Excel the biggest threat or risk in modern GRC and DPDP operations?
I mean, traditionally, if you might have seen some of the breaches happen, right? Uh, we we might have uh, the file format mostly is a spreadsheet. because one is it is convenience of storing information and sharing information. And from traditionally most of the information we get used to put it in Excel than before automation and come into the picture, right? So this is the various organizations, they still close to Excel way of keeping data, and most of the consent information also capturing in Excel format. And these Excels are very the distribution what it takes place, and the least privilege you can't enforce it. Some of these encryptions algorithms, or where this limiting not to send various people, it's easy to circulate and less enforceable from the security point of view. And the data leakage is very high. And uh, the countermeasure is something you automate and maintain a single truth of information, and minimize the spreadsheet of doing information capture. I think that's how I look at it, Prem.
What you are saying is, you already told that you should look at how that evidence or role based evidence is captured, how it is stored, define the truth, and reduce the friction with automation instead of having spreadsheets, is what you're saying, or manual reporting is what you're saying, right? And
Correct.
the breach usually starts as a spreadsheet, because you can do a lot of automation inside the spreadsheet to get some of the malware or any code written and being fed also. That's one challenge that we are seeing using spreadsheets, is what I know. What role do third party vendors play in breaking DPDP compliance?
Yeah, I think we earlier also we
uh,
discussed this point,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so third parties, so for your processing, because some of the things we outsource it because everything we can't do in house, that's where we involve third parties. But from the DPDP standpoint of view, the business owner, the data fiduciary, will hold the responsibility and accountability even though you bring the third party. So that's what we need to understand from our DPDP context point of view. um, you assess the third parties, have a proper agreements in place, and have that workflow cluster clear in case they further transferring information or processing from the third party down the another uh, some of the other vendors if they are involving it. Basically have the visibility. Many times you uh, for us, whenever we onboard a third party, it will be less visible, or their systems are not secure enough of what we have in house. Some of the practices they may not uh, because open source kind of things they may leverage it. That's why we do a lot of integration testing before you bring in anything, right? So, uh, so, so ideally, from the DPDP context, processors, like if you take cloud or these SaaS providers, because these days SaaS based applications are we everybody leveraging, right? Because of the ease of use and cost, and the pay for use of and various other things, and every service they are coming up. You need not invest on the infrastructure, software, and various things, and the expertise of tech. So everything is available in cloud based on SaaS offerings or cloud offerings. So these are the third party what we discussing in this context. So these are the people processing our information. So when they are processing information, again the consent fundamental remains same. How long you are keeping it, what purpose you have given for it, they are leveraging it that within that scope. Though you need to keep validating the scope creep if it is changing from time to time, because sometimes the uh, developments takes place and scope also gets changed, right? That point in time, either existing consent is still intact, or do we need to revisit the consent, right? And these are the certain elements in my view we need to handle carefully when you're involving third party, because ultimately you're accountable. So
Yeah. Now, what I see also is how do you give consent? With that, what's one vendor control you insist that most companies still don't enforce? Is there something that we can put across? Sure.
um, control, I feel agreements, in my view, uh, because that's where you have penalties, is what you enforce through agreements, just in case any unforeseen things are happening. And from the breach notification also, many times people don't be transparent enough to tell what is went wrong, right?
Mm.
So if something is unusual, they also need to admit to you. They should not hide it or fabricated things, right? These things you need to clearly call out the accountability, transparency, and the roles and responsibilities between you and the third party through agreements. I think that will, some extent, uh,
Okay.
will keep things in
So what
control.
what you're saying is, so what you're saying is maybe the inventory that is there, the DPA classifications that are there, or clauses that are there, audit rights, security at station, and sub processing visibility. Because vendors at times have sub vendors also, which you are
Correct.
talking about. That could be
Yes.
one challenge, is what you are saying, and some of the exit plans also could be one of the challenge that. And
Yes. Yes.
DPDP score can apply even while processing it outside India. So that is also a challenge that we are seeing, because
Yeah. The
DPDP
cross-border
score,
things,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So if the service target is principal is only India and you process it outside, also there's a challenge that we see. I think DPDP posture is only strong as you noise it to the vendor. So how the vendor process it, where does he operate from? Those are challenges. I think what you are saying in the clauses, the documentation and the accountability that they take is what you're saying. What happens when a breach actually occurs, and how does the proof get tested here?
So ultimately, when breach occurs, it's not that how best you prepared for it, right? And these incidents are inevitable, but when it happens, people, everyone will become panic. And even you say that, have that composed, cool, and all, that reality is something differ, because pressure gets mounting, and situation is become panic, and there is no clarity unless you deep dive about that instant, right? And and you also need to, DPDP has a stringent timeline of 24 hours. You need to report it. So first few hours, you have time to containment, like identifying what is went wrong. Is it possible for you to, not to spread to the major systems, like that containment. Then you have couple of hours to investigate what went wrong, and looking into tech detailing, or um, faster resolution. Basically, you investigate, and a bad scenario, if things are not getting improved, then immediately you need to communicate in a clear, simple way. People should understand. You should not hide things. And see, in what I understood from DPDPA point of view, it's not that they penalize you about what went wrong. They want to know transparently what went wrong, so that the damage, or it's basically the damage control is what government is looking. So when you explicitly say what went wrong, people are aware of, and they're prepared of, and you also work diligently for the fix or subsequent control. So coming back to our discussion, so have this uh, reporting structure. Your incident response team is diligently, working on that containment and investigation, and you're the person to communicate to the stakeholders and the, people who is as part of DPDP agreement. And Chris, in a simple term, basically they should understand what went wrong. And here some questions is, who decide that, what is the severity, who reports to whom. So these are the some of the things basically has that ambiguity when the incident happens. I think,
What you are saying is very important because today, as you when we started the podcast, we started with saying that today giving off a document or giving a copy of the Aadhaar card or the PAN card is not very very much taken care. As you said, it is not. It's okay to give. We are not worried about it what happens, but what the government is saying is whenever a data of proof of identity and a proof of residence is given to you, you have to protect that data, and that digital assets protection is yours, is what it is saying. And also organization must inform how the individuals are affected with delay, with what language, how many days it took to process, if there is a delay, why it got delayed and stuff. So everything has to be looked at and given in a consent, saying that this is the day we have collected, this is the day it will be processed, this is the day it will be backed up, and this is the day it will be archived after so many days, and then this is the date it will get deleted. This is what we talk about, the digital assets that go across. And we also look at how do we preserve, communicate, growth, trust, prevention, what is the short spin and stuff like that, right? So a breach doesn't reveal your security, it reveals your readiness to prove. That is what we are saying in as many words that we are talking about. Now coming to the next point, how do we fix the gap between policy and operations practically?
yeah. So policies again, like, too good to have to meet the compliance, right? So you don't, uh, in the first question, I believe we touched upon having the tools in place, monitoring is happening these many days. I keep the information. This is the consent collecting way of thing, right? So you have various organizational level policies might be rolled out, saying that uh, these are things I'm enforced, and these policies are I'm following as per the certification or regulatory point of view. But uh, operations is not works like that, because policies you show in a PowerPoint presentation, or no, giving a regulatory evidence point of view, this is what we are doing. But operations is something like, sometimes you have a sudden surprises, it is more chaos. And as we said, it is more like a behavioral aspect. You have tools in place, but people can induce the some of the mistakes. And concerns are not limited to what the purpose it is. And operations also will have the speed and agility of delivering things at a faster pace to meet the revenue targets, right? So operations always look at either uh, fixing what things went wrong or catch up the market. So policies on other side just to ensure the compliance and certification criteria, right? So there should be balance in terms of what you are saying the policy, and it has to be go hand in hand when you are dealing with the operations, I would say.
We're coming to the last question that we have while we do, Shiva. Uh, Give me a second. What is the minimal audit ready operation system you would build? People, process, tech, evidence. Your call on it, Shiva.
Yeah. So um minimum is something I would say, have the clear consent in place. First thing, that is far most important. And uh, don't be fully dependent on automation, because automation is good to know, as we discussed in the case of spreadsheets and some of the human intervention is highly related, like zero trust, we spoke about it, right? So have the balance between a human intervention as well as the automation. You make the consent rollout and workflows automation, and have that how long you are retaining the consent, things like that, that can be automated, because a deletion can happen when the deadline meets, right? You need not to, because when you intervene human, there is a tendency of people can forget things, right? So that's where automation can help you, but at the same time you don't give the control for certain decision making things. That's where still human intervention is required, like deciding the risk acceptance level, certain things. Then what is the um, uh, basically human should be a last leg to uh, approve the automation output. Otherwise it can create further chaos. So human intervention is always a rewind point of view, and take the right decisions which should help the business as well as the process and tech, and people balancing it.
I think what you are saying is look at the continuous compliance shift from annual audits to always check on controls. Use the NIST CSF 2.0 or govern function as the board level anchors for risk ownership and accountability. So that's a few things that you can look at is what you are saying, Shiva. And with this, we are good with the pointers that I had. I'll take a small. Takeaways that I have noted down. Meanwhile, I have one question which has come up from the audience. I'll bring it up here. So, yeah, this is Suraj who says, how difficult is DPDP to be executed on an Excel?
uh, I mean, if you could elaborate a little bit, executed on Excel in the sense, so are we still using Excel is asking, or
No, that's the point that he's put. So, what I infer from what his point is, we spoke about the Excel being the challenge that we are seeing where you can have code written and stuff because most of the data is on Excel. So I think when you implement DPDP, can we uh, how difficult is it to have DPDP executed using an Excel sheet is what I think is. See, I think as long as the data and the sheets are secure, I don't see a challenge that you see. But how secure is what you will have to review and check is what I will take from what I understand from that question, if that is the right way of asking. Shiva, your point, Shiva.
uh, see, many advancements what we talk about, many times it's not easy for us to accommodate or change everything from day one, right?
Mm.
It's a whatever we spoke about the best practices and things which are uh, historical data, based on historical data, we felt that spreadsheets are, or some of the weakest data format which could be exfiltrating or sharing or easy to open up the information. So if you can have that security in place, and role based access, and having the excels also can be protected with passwords, and having proper security measures in place, and not leaving it and allowing this is information is printable, or having your DLP controls, right? Some of the, you don't allow data to be uploaded on personal devices, disabling some of these uh, uh, sharing resources, like it could be WhatsApp, or some of these app based sharing, or connecting directly, you bring on your devices,
The device.
USB
Yeah.
devices, right? So various methodologies are there to protect data, not to exfiltrate. And with these certain measures, uh, what we talk about ideal situation to automate, but it doesn't mean that excels will be completely eliminated. People still might be using it. Only thing is you have a proper security best practices uh, in place. I think with that you still able to deal with the DPDP implementation. I hope that answers.
I think Suraj, if you have further questions, you can put it on the chat. We will answer to those. But this is what we understood or inferred from what you are saying. It can be implemented using Excel, but what we are saying is it should be protected. The data should be clear, and that if there is no malware that is coming from that Excel, that's where we see a challenge. Is what we want to tell you. But it depends on the situation to situation and what
Context,
kind of
yes.
context is that you are going to look at. Thank you for that question, Suraj. With this, I would like to bring up some of the takeaways that we have taken part of this podcast. DPDP proof, evidence, not policy based PDFs, especially around consent, purpose, and withdrawal. So, this is the first point that we want to look at. Then we said compliance breaks at the last mile, which we spoke about, where we saw exports are one of the challenges, the handoffs are the second pointers, spreadsheets, what we are talking about, the Excel pointer is another point, and we also spoke about vendor sprawls, right? So vendor can bring their own sub vending. How do we look at
Correct.
ensuring that vendor is also secure and they can be part of the engagement? So that is one pointer that we breaches test your proof, notifying affected individuals without delay and with clarity is the leadership moment is what
Transparency, yes.
yeah. So that's where so in this winning model in 2026, continuous compliance, controls, evidence, automation, and governance board level is to be looked at, and that's where DPDP done right becomes growth advantage, trust, speed, guardrails, and fewer costly reversals is what we wanted to say as a takeaway and a summary for this podcast. Any pointers that you want to add as a closing statement, Shiva?
Sure, Prem. So one point probably most of the people might thought about why DPDP is so important now, right? Because like unlike earlier, right? One uh, so government has put a lot of effort behind on this because the digitalization is increasing, and the data what we're collecting at various levels, various purposes is enormous. I think we are the leading country in the world. The data what we are collecting
Yeah.
or generating from the digital space.
Mm.
So from handling standpoint of view, human is not to scale or handling point of view. It's impossible from a human level. I think to have a better governance is what they come up with this Digital Personal Data Protection Act is in nutshell. Uh, so many people ask this is only for limiting to digital records, not from the hard copies, right? Because hard copies still has a lot of governance methods. If you go any government things, still has a valid checks and balances. Is I believe whenever we give a hard copy, or record management is still good at when you have a hard copy. Digital is something people don't have a control. That's where only you can bring the control by enforcing penalties, because that's where people will feel that responsible. Otherwise nobody takes it serious, right? So that's where the FT penalties have put, and they made accountability and ownership to the who actually collects the information, so that they are responsible in collecting information. It doesn't mean that it will slow down the opportunities, right? So just want to give one last analogy is like we've been seeing these express highways, right? And and it basically improving the user experience, It is allowing faster commute. It is giving smooth experience from the driving point of view. But having said that, it also has the speed limits for the certain line discipline, right? Otherwise it may I mean unwanted speed or uncontrolled way of doing business, I would compare with the highway. And speed limits, a certain line discipline is what I want to bring the DPDP in enforcement, so that it's not making the business slow down. It is making business in a responsible way to do it, so that later point of time whatever you collect excessive data, it will not lead for a bigger uh, breach or uncontrolled way of dealing things. So DPDP focus is more helping organization to how organizing you collect information, process and store and delete, basically the data life cycle management, so that the bigger breaches can be avoided. This is a preventive mechanism, I would say, than a scary element. Don't look at that way. And when you start giving exceptions, then there will be it will get dilute. I think that's where they're not discounted any smaller organizations, because many time people ask, I'm a very small company, right? I'm a why do I need to have a DPO or something like that? But it's not to have compliance or DPU heavy regulated things for the organizations at a small scale. It is more like owning that responsibility, dealing personal data diligently. It's more the roles and regulation heavy from the higher enterprise and large scale businesses has the higher scope to deal with it. It's the more data, the more regulation or more work to do from DPDP point of view. I think that's the summary I would like to add.
Thank you for that, Shiva. I think what Shiva is mentioning in as many words is you control the data which is collected, have it processed, and have that deleted or archived in the speculated time that the government has put as DPDP rules for collection of data. And data of individual is very important, which can bring down the brand value and the organization's credibility. So that's what we are saying when we say how do we look at DPDP proof breaks in daily operations and how do we fix it is what we want to see is collecting data, processing, storage, archive, and deletion is what we are talking about overall DPDP in a sense where the largest data is what we've collected across the globe is India. So, and that is not been considered, and we have seen a lot of data thefts and a lot of issues that are happening, breaches that are happening, and we've seen off late happening many companies that are going and falling prey for those data issues, right? So that's where we have this pointers for the government to look at data collection and restoration and deletion. That's the final point that we want to look at. And with this we are on top of the hour and we would like to conclude our episode. Shiva, thank you for joining us today. Thanks audience for joining us. You can connect to Shiva on the link, scroll link that is there, and I am bringing up a link of Shiva's this one where you can scan his the QR and connect with Shiva to get more details on DPDP and cybersecurity related pointers. Shiva, thank you for joining us, and good day, Shiva.
Thank you, Prem. Thank you so much. I wish you more success, strength, and power to um, power of knowing. I think you've been doing wonderful job. uh, the consistency is something I admire from you, the consistency you bring to the podcast, and I wish that momentum continue and continued success, Prem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all the viewers. I hope our discussion is informative, and hopefully we'll meet in next subsequent sessions. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.